Okay, we're going to continue part 2 of this assignment called Excel Function and Referencing Practice. And just as a quick reminder, you can find it in Canvas. And I'm going to show you very quickly where it is, right here in Week 8, Module 3. And we're going to be working with the worksheet that you'll find in there, the workbook, I should say. We're working on worksheet 2, which is absolute cell reference practice. Looks like this. And when we finish with it, it is going to look like that. Just so you can kind of see where we're going. All right, so this one's a little bit faster than the one we just did, which is the function practice one that ended up looking like this. So we're going to come over to this one, and there's a couple of things we're going to do here. First thing we're going to do is total up the number of students we have in all of these classes. This is just a list of SCC's favorite classes by the number of students enrolled. And then we're going to do just a simple formula that's going to calculate for us what percentage of our total students is represented in each class. And by doing that, I can introduce you to the difference between absolute addressing and relative addressing. So let's start with our total. So we're going to place our answer here in cell B12. And this is pretty simple. You're familiar with this. You've done it before, which is we're just going to do a sum. Okay, so we're going to click on our formulas. And we're going to go here to auto sum. And we're just going to click on that sigma because we want to add. If you remember in our last spreadsheet, we were using average and min and max. And so we had to click on the little arrow here to bring those up. But when we're going to do just plain old addition, we're going to sum something. We just click on the sigma and it automatically brings up the correct function for us. We just double check our cell addresses to make sure they're right and press enter. And we have our total number of students. So that was pretty easy. The second one is a little bit more tricky. So this takes you back to your high school math class. And whenever you want to do a percentage of a total, okay, you always divide. And a percentage of a total would be done where you put first the individual number that you want, and then below that, you're going to put your total. Okay, so that's how you set it up. It's a division. And so for us, we're going to create a formula. Remember, a formula is something we put into the system, and we tell Excel what to do. So we click here because that's where we want our percentage to go, and we're going to calculate what percentage of our total students are the students in BPC 110. So right here I'm going to click, I'm going to do equal, and instead of typing numbers, remember from a previous video we said we want to point and click. We don't want to type in the numbers in case they change. We just want to point to the cell address. So we're going to say equal, and we're going to point to cell B3. And then remember, that's our individual, and we're going to divide that by our total, which is down here. So we're going to click on that, and that's all we have to do. We press enter. And it tells us that 12% of our total students are taking BPC 110. Now, remember back to what we were doing on our previous worksheet where we were using our fill handle and we were filling either down or across for min, max, average, and count. In this case, we're going to do something very similar. We want to do the same thing that we did here for BPC 110. We want to do it for all the other classes. So I'm going to just come over here. I'm going to look for that little square. I'm going to lay my mouse on top of it, and I'm going to press and drag all the way down. However, it didn't work like it worked previously. I have error messages here. So what happened that created this problem? Well, let's take a look and see if we can figure it out. So I'm going to click back here, and I'm going to look at my my formula bar, and I'm going to see, okay, I did the right thing. I divided B3 by B12. Okay, that over here it says individual divided by total. So that looks good. I got a correct answer. So let's go down here and look and see what happened. Okay, so this just tells me I have an error. And right over here where I see this exclamation point, it tells me that if I hover over it, it tells me that the formula or function used is dividing by 0 or empty cells. So let's go see what that looks like up here in the formula bar. So it's telling me I'm going to divide B4, which is this number here for CIS 105. Perfect. And I'm going to divide that by B13. If I go down here, B13 is blank, so it was dividing 68 by a blank cell, which Excel always treats a blank cell as a 0. And that's really not what we wanted. We wanted it to divide this number in B4 by B12. Let's go take a look at the other ones and see what happened to those, because I've got error messages all the way down. So we're going to go down one more, and we see in this one, it's dividing B5, which is perfect, but it's dividing it this time by B14. B14 is an empty cell, which is, again, it's dividing by 0, which is why we're getting the error message. So it's not, it's dividing the correct class, but it's not dividing it correctly by the total. So there's something that is wrong here. If I continue to go through each one of these and look up here at the formula bar as I move, now I've got B6 divided by B15, B7 divided by B16. So all of these are incorrect. So I am going to undo this by just clicking here, and I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to start again. What happened when we did that was something we call relative addressing right here. Relative addressing says, okay, when you did this first one, you divided the value in this cell by the value in that cell. Okay, that one worked perfectly. But when I filled it down, I adjusted those cells relative to the first cell. So in other words, if the first cell divided B3 by B12, then the next cell I just adjusted by one cell each. Excuse me, I divided B4 by B13. And then this one, I divided B5, but I divided it by B15, or 14, excuse me. So what it did was it kept adjusting each half of this formula by one cell. Instead of B3, up here it was B4, but instead of B12, it went to B13. So we need to find a way to tell it, okay, Excel, it's okay to change this half of the formula, but we don't want you to change this half. So we call this part where it changes relative addressing, but now we want to apply something called absolute addressing, which is right here. And absolute says, okay, when I fill down, don't change this. Don't change this address. Go ahead and change this one, but not that one. And so the way that I do that, the way I tell Excel not to change part of my formula, is that the easiest way is just to put my cursor at the front of that cell address and press the F4 function key on my keyboard, F4. And that automatically inserts dollar signs in front of the column as well as the row. That's all I have to do. That's function F4, and that's at the top row of your keyboard. You'll see it there with an F4. Now, if for any reason you don't have those function keys on your keyboard, I'm going to undo that, and you can actually just manually type in dollar signs. So I'm going to go in front of the B, and type in the $sign, which is shift the number 4. And then I'm going to click or move my cursor over here in front of the 12 and do shift 4 again, which manually enters those $signs. So either way is okay. It's just up to you. Once I've got that in, and notice I'm not changing anything with B3. I'm just changing B12. So once it's all set, I'm going to press enter. My answer for C3 doesn't change at all, which is fine because it was correct in the first place. But now what happens when I fill down, I all of a sudden get the correct answer. So let's take a look at the formula bar and see how that worked. If I click here, oh, B4 changed. B3 changed from B3 to B4, but B12 did not. When I go down another cell, B4 changed to B5, B12 did not. And I can go down to each one and I can see that the front half of my formula changed, which is what I wanted, but the back half of the formula, the divide by, did not change, which is exactly what I wanted. So absolute addressing is where you enter $signs, and what that does is it says to Excel, absolutely do not change the address. Okay, relative addressing, I don't do anything, and that says okay to change the address. That's the difference between relative and absolute addressing. Okay, so we've got all of this done, and our next step is to create a pie chart. So we've completed steps 1 and 2 in this part of the assignment, and we're going to move on to step 3. And in step 3, we're going to create a pie chart, and the pie chart is going to show each class and the percentage that it represents of the entire number of students. So anytime you want to show a percentage of a whole, like we did here, I want the percentage of each versus this total number, you want to use a pie chart. So we're going to go back to our Insert tab on the ribbon, and this time we're going to come back over to our charts. We could choose recommended charts, but just to show you something different, I'm going to show you this is the pie chart. It's got a little arrow here I'm going to click on, and it lets me choose which type of pie chart I want. Before I do that, I need to select the data that I want to chart. And so then we'll do that and then come back and choose our chart. And I think we're just going to use just this plain one. Okay, to create my pie chart then, I'm going to start with cell A2. And I'm going to press and drag down to select that range of cells. And then because the columns are non-contiguous, they're not next to each other, then I have to hold the control key down. I have to start here at C2 and I have to drag down to C11. Then I can release my control button. So I've selected 2 non-contiguous columns. At this point, I'm ready to draw the pie chart. So I go to Insert. I'm going to go back here to my pie chart. I'm going to choose just a standard 2-dimensional pie chart. And you can see that it has created the pie chart for me. It has grabbed the individual classes and color-coded them and placed them at the bottom of the chart. And then it has grabbed the label from cell C2 and used that as the title for my chart. So I'm ready to continue on with my step 3. And it says once I've created the chart, and made sure that I have legend names, and that's these down here. Then I am going to change the title of the chart so that it says percentage of students. I'm going to get rid of the second line. So to do that, I just click inside this box and I just take my little I-beam and I backspace and I get it to where it says percentage of students and I press enter. Whoops. Actually, I'm going to click outside of it because otherwise if I press enter, it's going to put in a blank line. So now I've got my title changed to percentage of students. And then the next step is to apply a chart style. So I'm going to come back up here to chart styles. Notice for the pie chart, I don't have as many choices as I did for the clustered column one that we did. So chart style 11 is right here. I'm going to click that and notice that this chart style automatically put the percentages onto the actual slices of the pie, which is really nice. So everything looks really good. I'm going to now move this to the upper left-hand corner of A14. So I'm going to just grab right up here. I usually try to grab between the circles rather than grabbing the circle, because if you try to grab one of the circles, it thinks you want to stretch the size of the chart, and that's not what we want to do. So we want to I always just grab over here, and I'm going to go over to A14, and I'm going to place it right in the upper left-hand corner, right there. At this point now, I'm just about done with this assignment. There's only one other step to do, and that's step 4. So I'm going to go up to page layout, and I'm going to make some changes. Now, make sure before you go up to the page layout tab on your ribbon that you've clicked outside of your pie chart. If your pie chart is still selected like it is here, then I can change my orientation to landscape, which it's already defaulted from portrait to landscape because I changed it with the previous worksheet. But notice the next step tells me to, let me click on that. The next step tells me to go to scale to fit, but it's all grayed out. And it's grayed out because my chart is selected. So I want to make sure I click outside that chart. So I'm back on the spreadsheet itself, and now I can change my scale to fit. And I'm going to do that with one page for the width and one page for the height. And then the last thing I'm going to do is exactly what I did on my previous worksheet, which is I'm going to expand this, and I'm going to go into header and footer. I'm going to create a custom footer. And in the left section of this footer, I'm going to insert the file name. So remember, make sure your cursor's there. Remember, the file name icon is right here. I'm going to click it. Remember, I'm not going to see the actual name of the file. I'm going to see a command that tells Excel to grab the file name from up here. Click OK and OK again. Before we wrap this up, let's do a quick print preview to make sure it looks like it's supposed to. So I'm going to click here, and that's interesting. I had selected landscape. Okay, this may happen to you too. I selected landscape. When I print preview it, it's showing portrait. So I'm just going to change it right here to landscape so it looks like it's supposed to. So that's the beauty of print previewing. You can see if everything was done as it was supposed to. But in this case, it was real easy to fix that. So now I can see that I've got the chart here, and then I've got the spreadsheet here. I also have my footer with my file name there. So everything looks good. I'm going to go back out of print preview, and I'm going to save this worksheet, or workbook I should say, and I will upload it for my assignment points. Hopefully you found this helpful, and if you have any questions on how to do any of this, I'd recommend first to go back and rewatch parts of the video, and then otherwise, if you're still struggling with something, feel free to give me and send me an email, and I'll help you that way. Thanks so much. See you next time.